Okay, what we're going to do now is we are actually going to start combining our vehicle form and our robot form. So currently we are on the second layer up top, so we're one to the right. What we're going to do is hold down shift and then we're going to left click on the first layer. So I just let go of shift. We can see our car right here. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm then going to click on our car. I'm going to hold shift. Then while holding shift, I'm going to left click on the wheels as well. And what I'm going to do is press S to scale our vehicle mode up. And when we scale this up, the main thing we want to look at is the length that goes from our knee to the bottom of our robot mode's foot. We want this length to be about the same as this length here. So we're going to press S to scale. Doesn't have to be exact, but this looks to me about where that's at, or where, you know, the as far as the distance being relatively the same. Okay, what we want to do now is click on our vehicle mode, and then we want to go down to where we see object mode, and then left click on edit mode. We can fairly easily UV map our vehicle mode using Blender's ability to select hard edges. That ability to select or to set up seams for UV mode will also make it easier for us to select parts of our vehicle. And hopefully you'll see what I mean in a few moments. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back so we can see our whole vehicle mode right here. What we want to do is go to select, sharp edges, and then left click on sharp edges. Right here, we want to scroll up. So when I say here, I'm looking to the down left hand side. And what we want to do is where we see select sharp edges and then sharpness, we have a slider where we can set the angles. So basically we can determine what sharp edges we want. And we want to take this up to about 38. Doesn't have to be exactly that. And what we want to do now is look at our vehicle mode. I'm going to press C for paint select. I'm going to roll my mouse to shrink the area of my paint select. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button. And what I'm doing now is I'm deselecting pieces that were grabbed. Now we're not using this right now, though this will assist us later on as far as UV editing. We're not setting these seams up for that purpose now. Right now what we're doing is we're making our vehicle mode just easy to select different sections. So I'm holding down the middle mouse button. That's how I'm deselecting. I'm still in paint select mode. Now I'm going to right click to get out of paint select mode. Zoom in, holding the middle mouse button. I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse. I'm letting go of everything. Now I'm holding shift. And the reason why I'm holding shift is just so I can have this complete edge there selected. Okay, I'm going to zoom back some. So with these different edges selected, what we're going to do is we're going to hold control, and then while holding control, press E. This brings up our edges menu, and then what we're going to do is we're going to select mark seam. And what normally use mark seam to set up for UV unwrapping. However, one of the nice things with mark seam is, watch this. I'm going to press A to deselect, right? These red lines you see, these are seams. UV mapping is typically a way of taking a 3D object and basically laying it out as if it was 2D. So that's typically what you would use seams for. We are going to use something else that comes from those seams. When we select face select, and I hover here, for instance, you can see all these seams. And I hover here and I press L. Basically what just happened is when I pressed L, I select everything that was inside of this current seam. So by setting the seams up like this, this just allows us to have an easier way to select, just like I just did, hovering over the piece that we want and then pressing L. Okay, with this transformer that we're making, there's two things that go on with typical transformations that I've seen as far as doing my research for this video. The one transformation of a vehicle turning into a robot is similar to the last tutorial that I did on making a transforming robot. And what that is you actually have all of the pieces of your vehicle actually change form, rotate, twist, whatever they need to be, and then they become the robot. You know, they form into the robot. And it's nice because it's actually changing. However, there is the other way of having a vehicle turn into a robot, and that other way is largely doing with making things look like what they're not really. It looks cooler because you can have a lot of different things flipping around and rotating, and it seems to be that a lot of the transformation is dealing with just there's so many things going on that it's kind of hard for your eyes to follow exactly what is going on. That's pretty much what we're going for with this transformation right here. That being said, with this vehicle, there's a few main things that we need for this vehicle. We need this area right here, which is going to go towards the arms. We need this area right here. And when I say the main, these are going to be prominent areas that you're going to see on the robot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to take a look. So these seams should help us select. What we're going to do now is we're going to start taking our vehicle apart. Before we do that, I'm going to click here, go to object mode. With our vehicle selected, I'm going to hold shift and then left click on the wheels. I'm going to hold shift D and then right click. So I basically have this vehicle mode selected. I have the duplicate of the vehicle mode selected. Now I'm going to press M. And then what I'm going to do is move this duplicate to here. And I did that because we're largely going to be taking this vehicle mode apart. So I'm going to hold the middle mouse button and rotate. Now I'm going to go down to object mode. I'm then going to left click and select edit mode. I'm going to go to our display mode, and then I'm going to select right to go to right view. I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to press Z, go to wireframe. Did that because I want to be able to select this entire back right here. I'm hovering my mouse here. I want to draw a box and select this right here. So I'm going to press B for box select, and then I'm going to left click and drag, and that worked out well. So I have this entire back here selected because I went in the wireframe. I'm going to hold them in the mouse, but you can see this whole area here is selected, and that is excellent because that's what we want. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to press Z, then we're going to select solid mode. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button, rotate. We want to take this whole piece here and separate it. So there's an easy way to do that in Blender. We're going to press the Y key. Now I just pressed the Y key, so now I should be able to left click and drag, and now you can see this whole part here is separate from this part right here, which is good. We do want the wheels to go along with this. So I'm going to left click here, go to object mode. I'm going to click here. So I click, when I say click here, I clicked on the wheels. I'm going to select object mode, then go to edit mode. I am then going to press Z, go to wireframe. I'm going to hold control. While holding control, I'm going to hold the right mouse button and draw a lasso select around this back tire. I'm now going to press P, and that brings up our separate menu. I'm going to choose selection. I'm then going to, let's press Z, go back to solid view. Then going to left click on edit mode, or next to edit mode, the two triangles, then select object mode. I now can click on these wheels here, pull them back into place like that, because we want these wheels to move along with our back piece right here. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to join our wheels to this back piece. So with the wheel selected, I'm going to hold shift. Now remember, I just made this wheel a separate piece from that wheel right there. This is its own object now. So I'm holding down shift and then I'm left clicking. Okay, I'm left clicking here, which is our vehicle mode, which is fine. And okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to left click here, hold shift, and then while I'm holding shift, I'm going to left click there. We're going to take both of these wheels and join them to our vehicle mode. So I'm still holding shift. The order is important. I selected this wheel and then this wheel. And then lastly, I selected our vehicle mode. And now with that done, I'm going to hold control and then press J. So our wheels changed somewhat because they acquired the modifiers from our vehicle mode, which that's fine. Okay, so with that done, we're going to go down next to object mode. We're going to click on one of the triangles. We're then going to select edit mode. Okay, so now we have our wheel as a piece of this. That's what we wanted. We're going to press Z, go to wireframe mode, hold control. While holding control, hold the right mouse button. And I'm selecting this wheel right here. I'm now going to press Z and then select solid mode. Okay, we're going to want to rotate this. This will be easier to do without this mirror modifier on here. So what we're going to do is left click here, go to object mode, go to our modifiers. We're going to click apply to apply our mirror modifier. We're then going to come back near object mode, click on one of the two triangles, and then left click to go into edit mode. With this area here selected, we're going to press R to rotate on the Y axis 180 and then press enter to lock that in. Okay, it's still advantageous for us to have a mirror modifier on our mesh. So what we're going to do is we're going to left click on tools. We're going to go down towards auto mirror. This is why auto mirror is great, because we can apply mirror modifiers and put them back on most of the time fairly easily. So we'll left click on auto mirror. Now we have our mirror modifier back on. Our mirror modifier is down in our stack of modifiers. We don't want that. So when we see these two arrows here, I'm going to left click on the one arrow, and this raises our modifier up in the stack. So now our mirror modifier is back to the top of the stack. And that is excellent. Okay, so we're going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button, rotate the view. I'm going to press Z, go to wireframe, hold the control key and the right mouse button to a lasso select. Hold control, press L to make sure we have all of our geometry selected. I'm going to press Z, then select solid view. So what we want to do is we want to rotate this down. So I'm going to go to display. So we're right in a right view right here. And we're going to press R to rotate on the X axis. Just like that. I'm going to take the manipulator, bring this down. I'm then going to push this forward. Holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to go to our mirror modifier where we have our clipping here. I'm going to left click to take the check mark away from clipping. And then I'm going to pull this out to the side like this. Pull it to the side more like that. Okay, we're going to hold the middle mouse button. We're going to look towards here. And we need this area right here. So let's roll the mouse wheel to zoom in. We're going to need this. Okay, I'm going to press A to deselect. We're on face select. I'm going to hover here. I'm going to press L, 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 L. Why am I pressing L? I'm pressing L because in Blender, when you're hovered over an object, you can select that entire object. So we're in the object of vehicle mode. I'm selecting the individual objects in the vehicle object mode by pressing L. Okay, so I have this. I'm going to press C for paint select. I'm going to paint right here. And we have that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to hold shift, and then while holding shift press H. And what that did was that hid everything other than what we have currently selected. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to press C for paint select. I've right clicked to get out of paint select. I'm holding shift and middle mouse button to pan. I'm holding the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm going to hold control, and then while holding the right mouse button, I'm drawing a lasso select. Now I'm going to press H to hide that geometry. Excellent. Okay, so we have this geometry. We want to make sure that this geometry is easy to select. What we're going to do is press A to select this geometry. We're then going to press Y. We're then going to right click. Now we pressed Y to separate this geometry from the other geometry that's previously hidden. We're going to do something else. We're going to go to our material mode. This is our material. We're going to click plus, and then we're going to click new. And we're going to left click on this material. We'll just make this a little darker. Then we'll left click on assign. Now the reason why I did that was so we can press A to deselect. We'll then hold Alt, then press H. And then we'll press A to deselect. Now I wanted to pull this geometry as well as this tire to the side. That's what I currently want to do. I also want to move this tire with this geometry. So what I can do is I can hover over the tire, press L to select the tire. And now what I can do is I'm going to hold, for the tire, wait a second. With this tire selected, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign this tire this new material we made as well. And then now with that selected, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to select and then select similar, and I'm going to select material. So now we have the geometry that we want, and we'll pull this to the side. And roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. We'll pull to the side more. Like that. Okay, now we'll press A to deselect. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan the view. Okay, what we're going to do is press Z, go to wireframe. We're going to hover here. We're on face select. We're going to press B for box select. We're going to select this geometry here. We're going to press Z, go to solid view. We're going to click on this object data button here. We're going to look down to where we see Vertex Groups. We're going to click the plus button to the right here. And then we have this new Vertex Group here. We're going to double click on this new Vertex Group. We're going to name this Other Vehicle Parts. So we just made a new Vertex Group. And then with this geometry here selected, we're going to left click on Assign. So when we did that, now this geometry is assigned to this vertex group. So why don't we do that? What we can do is we can press A to deselect and then click select here and have this geometry selected again. Okay, so why don't we do that? The reason why we did that is what we want to do is move this geometry out of the way, but we want to keep it. So one easy way to do that is I'm going to press S to scale 0.01 and then enter to lock that in. So our geometry is very small. It's right there. For the most part, it's out of the way. And then if we want to bring this geometry back, we can use this vertex group to bring the geometry back. Okay, what we're going to do now is press A to deselect. We're then going to left click near the bottom, select object mode. What we want to do is add some more geometry to our robot base mode. So we're going to hold shift, press C to put our 3D cursor right back in center of our scene. We're going to hover to the side of it, hold shift, press B. We're then going to draw a zoom box to zoom back in. And then we're in object mode, so we're not in edit mode for our robot base mode. We're going to hold shift, and then while holding shift, press A. This brings up our add to menu. We're then going to select cube. So now we have a cube. Even though you can't see the cube, we're going to, with the cube selected, we're going to left click on object mode, then or near object, the two triangles. We're going to click edit mode. We're going to take this cube and pull it to the side. We're then going to push this cube down so we can work on the legs. So what we're going to do is press S to scale to make this leg bigger. I'm going to push this right generally into position. Like that. Okay, we are going to go to Tools. We're going to go down to Auto Mirror and then left click on Auto Mirror. Okay, so with that done, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press A to select our cube. I'm just moving that more into position over the leg. I'm going to press S to make this bigger. I'm then going to press A to deselect. We're on face select. I'm going to select this top face. Bring this up to about there. I'm going to press Control L to select the entire cube. Move it forward some. Push it down lower. Press A to deselect. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Click the top face and then pull that up more like that. Now I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to hover here. We're going to hold control. While holding control, we're going to press R. We're going to roll the mouse wheel one time. Then going to left click, then left click again to lock in. We're going to press A to deselect. We're then going to go to face select. We're going to hold Alt. While holding Alt, we're going to left click here. We're going to press E to extrude, right click. Doesn't look like we did anything. We made new geometry. So we have this new geometry. So what we're going to do now is scale that geometry down like that. I'm then going to press A to deselect. I'm then going to go to our pivot point option. The default pivot point in Blender is the medium point. We're going to select individual origins. And then with this, what we're going to do is we're going to left click here, hold shift, left click here, and I'm holding the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, and then I'm going to pull to the side like that. Then I'm going to press S to scale like this. I'm now going to left click here, hold shift. While holding shift, click here. I'm going to press E to extrude, right click. You don't want to touch there in the center. I'm going to press S to scale like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm now going to, with face select on, I'm going to click here, hold shift, click here. I'm then going to press E to extrude, right click. I'm going to press S to scale on the X axis like this. I'm going to left click. I'm then going to press E to extrude, right click, press S to scale. I'm going to take the manipulator and pull in like that. Then I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, press S to scale on the X axis. Then I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, and then push straight forward like that. Then I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, now I'm going to click here, press E to extrude, right click, hold the middle mouse button, rotate. I'm just rotating so I can get more of a 3D view when I push this forward like that. Then I'm going to press S to scale. Holding the middle mouse button to take a look. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to click here, press E to extrude, right click, pull straight up like this. Then I'm going to go to edge select, press A to deselect, click here, and then push down like that. I go back to face select, click here, bring that out some like that. Okay, I'm gonna click here, press E to extrude, right click, bring this forward, press S to scale. I press A to deselect. Then I'm gonna left click here, press E to extrude, right click, bring this up like that. Okay, I'm gonna press S to scale. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to go to edge select, then click here, pull this down like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to right click here, hold shift, then press A. This brings up our add to menu. I'm then going to select cube. I'm going to press S to scale. I'm going to move this cube along the side of the leg. Push this back. So you want this cube to not be directly in alignment with the front of your leg. You want it to be back some. I'll push this down. I press A to deselect. And I go to face select. I'm going to left click on the top here and pull this up like that. I'm going to hover here, press L to select the entire cube, push this in like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to click here and change this pivot point from individual origins back to the default pivot point in Blender, which is the median point. I'm going to left click near the bottom. I'm going to go to object mode. I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to left click on our vehicle mode pieces. I'm then going to left click and then go to edit mode. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to shift the middle mouse button to pan. Getting a top view basically. I'm going to press Z, go to wireframe. I'm going to select this geometry right here. I'm currently on face select. I'm going to press Z, a solid view. I'm going to press C for paint select and select this geometry here. Holding the middle mouse button to look and see what I've selected. I'm going to press C for paint select. This is still selected, so I'm going to press Z, go to wireframe, hold C, and then deselect. I'm going to press Z, go back to solid view. I think I want this piece here, so I'm going to over here press L. I'm going to press Y now and then right click. I'm going to pull this to the side. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hover here, press L. Okay, I'm going to press Z, go to wireframe. I'm going to hold control while holding the control. I'm going to hold the right mouse button and then draw a lasso, select all around here. I'm then going to press S to scale, 0.01, and then enter just to shrink that. I'm going to hold control, hold the right mouse button, and select right here. I'm going to press Z, then go back to solid view. I'm going to push this over here like this. I press S to scale. Scale that. When I'm scaling this, I'm looking basically at the top of the leg. push this forward like this. Just holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Okay, I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to left click. Okay, we're in edit mode, so I'm going to go to object mode. I'm going to left click on our main robot mode. I'm going to then go to edit mode. I'm going to go to face select. What I'm doing is grabbing this cube and I'm just making the cube the height of this vehicle mode piece right here. So I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to left click, go to object mode. I'm going to click back on our vehicle mode. I'm going to left click and then go to edit mode. I'm going to hold shift and the mouse button to pan. What I'm going to do with this is press Z, go to wireframe, hold control. While holding control, I'm holding the right mouse button to draw a lasso. Select, I'm going to press Z and then go to solid view. I'm now pushing this in towards our robot mode. Push this back. And I press R to rotate on the Y axis. I don't want that. See, it's going that way. I'm going to press R to rotate on the Y axis, -9, 0. Then left click to lock that in. Bring this up like this. We're going to press S to scale. Now, when we scale, you can scale to make things fit how you think, which will make your transformer look cooler. Be aware of this tire size compared to that tire size. You want them to be, doesn't have to be exact, but somewhat similar. Just holding the middle mouse button, taking a look. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button, rotate, face select on. I was gonna select just there, but I can press L, zoom in, hold shift to the middle mouse button. I'm gonna hold control on the middle mouse button for a smooth zoom. I'm gonna press L, then L. I'm then gonna press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. I want to select this entire edge around here. So I'm going to go to edge select. I'm going to hold Alt. Because I'm holding Alt, I'll be able to select hopefully as much edge as Blender will let me select. Currently I'll hold shift as well as Alt. So I grab most of that there. Holding Alt, was able to grab most of that there. Holding shift and Alt. That there, holding shift and Alt again. I let go of shift and Alt to rotate the view. I'm letting go of shift and Alt so I can rotate the view. And I grab that because I want thickness. So now I'm going to press E and then right click. I press E to extrude. We have new geometry from that extrusion, even though it doesn't look like there's new geometry. There is new geometry all along that edge. So now I'm going to just push down like this. And zoom back. I'm going to press A to deselect. One thing when you're working with mechanical objects that can be fun, you can do a lot of quote-unquote cheating. When we need thickness, we can put a cube in and get thickness from that. I want thickness here, so I'm going to hold shift. Well, I'm going to right click first to get the 3D cursor here. Put the 3D cursor here because in Blender, where the 3D cursor is at is where objects tend to come into Blender at. We're going to hold shift, we're going to press A. This brings up our add menu. We're going to select cube. So here's our cube. We're going to press S to scale this cube up. We want thickness here. And basically we want, I'm holding the middle mouse button so we can actually have this thing lined up. We want thickness here. So what we're going to do is press, we'll press A to deselect. We'll go to face select. We'll click here. We'll pull this forward some like that. Press A to deselect. Okay, so with this geometry here, let's we don't want this totally covering the arm up. Let's press L. Let's press S to scale on the Z axis. So basically what we want is this looking like a piece of armor. We'll press S to scale on the Z axis. So see how we have some of the base robot showing through. Let's make this look a little bit less cubish. We can hold Control, press R. We'll put one loop cut there. That's what we did by pressing Control R. We'll roll the mouse wheel once. We'll then left click and then left click again to lock that in. Now we'll press A to deselect. So because we did that loop cut, now what we can do is we can grab this and get that somewhat of a curve here. Now what we're going to do is hover here, hold Control, press R to put a loop cut here. We'll left click once, left click a second time. We'll press A to deselect now. Okay, we're going to hover here, hold Control. While holding Control, press R. We're going to put in two loop cuts. We're then going to left click, pull this to the right, left click again. We'll press A to deselect. So I put this loop cut in here, this one right here, mainly to give some depth between here and here. I want to delete this right here. If I didn't put this loop cut in, I wouldn't be able to do what we're about to do now, which is go to face select, select here, hold shift, click there, zoom in, hold shift, hold shift, hold shift. I'm going to hold shift in the middle mouse button to pan. Now I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. So we were able to do that. Click what modifiers do we have on here? Just taking a look. Let's put some more armor-like substance on the hand. So we'll right-click, hold Shift, press A, bring in a cube. I'm going to hold Shift, press D, because we're going to use more cubes. I'm going to hover here, press L. Oops, press A. Now press L. There we go. And yeah, when we're doing this form, we want this character to look tough and armored up. And think about places where armor would be useful, like the hands. So we'll press S to scale on the Z axis. Press S to scale on the Y axis. See how that preview line shows you how Blender's going to scale? That is great because you pretty much know where you're scaling to. I'm holding the middle mouse button. I was rolling the middle mouse button to zoom in. Press A to deselect. Pull that forward, something like that. Press A to deselect. Let's give some more thickness to our shoulder. Press L, hold Shift, press D to duplicate. Push this over. And yeah, you can use cubes to add detail, add an armored look. Just moving this into position here. I'm actually going to hold Shift, press D, and then right click to duplicate again. So I want to press S to scale here. I'm going to press S to scale on the Y axis there. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hover here, press L, because while we're over here, I'm going to press S to scale on the Y axis. I'm going to add armor around the neck area as well. I'm going to press A to deselect. Click here. I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu, and then choose faces to delete. I'm going to press L, push this here. I'll press S to scale on the Z axis like this. Press S to scale X axis. I'm going to go to our mirror modifier, turn on clipping so that this joins right here. Left click here, press E to extrude, right click. Click here, press E to extrude, so that we have some armor starting to form around the head. Let's click here, click here. Okay, I'm clicking. I'm trying not to say click here. Clicking in there, the front of the face. Click on face select, hold shift. I'm clicking on these faces around the head. I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, press S to scale. Then I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, push down, press S to scale. I had to push down too much. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to left click right here. I'm going to press Alt O to turn on our proportional editing tool. I'm going to press G and then Z. You can see I can roll the mouse to increase the area of influence for the proportional editing tool. And I'm doing this just to angle this down some. I press A to deselect. Okay, let's work on this chest area here. So what we're going to do is hover here. I'm going to press O and then O again to turn off our connected proportional editing tool. I'm going to hover here. I'm going to press L. I'm going to hold Shift, then press D, and then right click. When I press Shift D, I duplicated, pushing this cube down like this. I'm going to left click here. I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. I deleted that face because we have a mirror modifier on here, so I'm about to push this cube over, so there's no reason to have this extra face that we're not going to see, so that's why I did that. So I'm pressing L, then I'm going to push this over like this, pull this up like this, push this forward like that, click here, pull to the side like this, hold them in the mouse button to turn to the side. Now I'm pulling back to angle this back. Now I'm going to press L and then bring that forward. Like that. Up some. Okay, I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to right click right here, or right click right there to put the 3D cursor there. Where the 3D cursor is at in Blender is where objects tend to come into Blender at. So I'm going to hold Shift, press A. This brings up our Add to menu. We're going to go to Mesh and then left click on Cylinder. We have a cylinder here. So we're going to look to our left and we can see here's our vertices. We're going to change this from 32 to 8. So I'm going to press 8 and then press Enter. I'm going to press R to rotate on the Y axis, 90, and then press Enter to lock that in. I'm holding the mouse button to rotate the view, pushing this forward. This is also going towards the chest area. I'm holding Shift and the mouse button to pan. Clicking here, I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Okay, I deleted that face there because we're going to be pushing this towards our mirror modifier, so there's no need to have that extra face. So now we're going to take our manipulator and push that up. Press S to scale. I held the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm going to pull this to the side. I'm going to hold shift and then press H. So we just see this right here. I'm then going to go to display and go to view global / local and select here. So we can just focus on right here. I'm holding shift the middle mouse button to pan. I'm holding control the middle mouse button to zoom in now. Okay, we're going to press A to deselect. We're going to left click here to go to edge select. We're going to click here, hold shift, click here. We're then going to press and hold Alt. While pressing Alt and holding it, we're going to press O. That turned our connected proportional editing tool on. We're going to press G and then Z, and we're going to pull down like that. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel, pull down more. Then I'm going to left click like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hover here. I'm going to hold control. While holding control, I'm going to press R. I'm going to move the mouse so that this is a horizontal loop cut. Then I'm going to left click once, then left click a second time to lock that in. Then I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hover here. I'm going to hold control. While holding control, I'm going to press R. I'm going to left click once, then left click a second time to lock that in. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to left click here to go to vertex select. I'm going to click here, press G, then Z, then pull that up. The reason why I'm doing this is this gives us kind of like a chest rib cage shape, and hopefully you'll see in a moment. I'm going to press O twice to turn off our connected proportional editing tool. I'm going to go to face select, click here, hold shift, then hold shift again. I let go of shift to rotate the view. I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu. Then I'm going to choose faces to delete. I'm going to hold the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to go to edge select. I'm going to click here. I'm going to press O to turn our proportional editing tool on. I'm going to press G, then Y. Bring that forward, something like that. Now I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Alt, and then while holding Alt, press H to unhide the rest of our geometry. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to now go to view global / local and then left click here so we can see the rest of our geometry. Okay, we're going to go to face select. I'm going to press O to turn off the proportional editing tool. I'm going to hover here, press L. I'm going to pull this up like this. See how this kind of gives us almost like a rib cage look here. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to click here, press G. Right click. I want to press hold Alt, press O to turn on our connected proportional editing tool. The connected proportional editing tool will only affect right here rather than all this other geometry. So I'm going to press G and then Y. I did that because I wanted this to be behind here. So that's why I just used that connected proportional editing tool. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do now is hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press O twice to turn off the connected proportional editing tool. I'm going to go to our mirror modifier, take away this check mark next to clipping. Then I'm going to left click here, then press E to extrude and pull out some, then left click to lock that in. Then I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hover here, hold control. While holding control, I'm going to press R. Put a loop cut there. I'm going to left click a second time to lock that loop cut in. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to turn the clipping back on for a mirror modifier. I'm going to go to face select. I'm going to left click here, press E to extrude, right click, and then press S to scale like this. Holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view just so I can get a more 3D view as I'm about to push this in. I'm going to press E to extrude, right click. I'm going to push this in like that. I'm then going to press Shift D and then right click. So I duplicated the plane that I just pushed in. Now I'm pushing this out like this. And now I'm going to hold control, then while holding control press R. I'm putting in loop cuts in here. I'm going to left click once, then left click a second time to lock that in. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, and the reason why we're doing this, we're going to go to face select. It's kind of gives us, this is a fairly easy way when you're doing mechanical things. I call it getting free detail because it's pretty easy. So with these, I just held shift, I selected all of those faces. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press shift D again, right click. Then I'm going to press E to extrude and then extrude out. I'm going to hold control and then press L. And then I'm pulling this forward. Now the main reason I'm pulling this forward is just so I can easily select this. Again, I pulled it straight forward with the manipulator. That's important. I'm going to hover here. I'm going to press L to select that. Then I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu. Then choose faces to delete. Okay, I'm going to press Z, go to wireframe, hold control. While holding control, I'm going to hold the right mouse button so I can draw a lasso select. I'm going to press Z, then go back to solid view. Because I took this manipulator and pulled straight forward, I can take the same manipulator and pull straight back. Like that. Like that. Now I'll press A to deselect. You see this right here. Don't let that get to you. The modifiers we have, we're going to join this to this. The modifiers, I think, should take care of like this curving there. If it doesn't, we can just put a bevel on it, and then that should deal with that. So don't let that get to you. I rolled the mouse wheel to zoom back. I'm holding shift and the middle mouse button to pan now. Okay, I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan down. The way this is set up, this arm would have a hard time bending, so we can fix that by pressing L, L, L to select this. Pressing L here to select that. Pressing L here to select that. So we're just going to push this over like this. We're going to push this up, and we're giving area so that this arm can look like it can bend. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan. So we got that detail there. We got this big block right here. Let's break that up. So we're going to click here, then click here. Okay, I'm clicking on object mode, and then I'm clicking edit mode. So now I'm going to make sure we're on face select, which we are. I'm then going to click here, press E to extrude, right click, press S to scale, left click. I'm holding the middle mouse button to get a view just because I'm about to push that in. I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, push that in. I'm now going to hold shift, press D, and then right click, and then push this out like that. This being that face right there. Okay, we're going to hover here. We're going to hold control. While holding control, press R. We're going to roll the mouse wheel to subdivide this plane. We're going to left click once, left click a second time to lock in. We're going to press A to deselect. Okay, we're going to go to face select. I want to extrude every other face. The easy way to do that is what we can do is hover here, press L, and then we can go to select, check or deselect, and we have that right there. We're going to hold shift, press D, right click, push this forward, then press E to extrude, right click, and then push that forward. We're going to press A to deselect, hover here, press L, press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Now we'll press Z, go to wireframe, hold control as well as holding the right mouse button. We'll press Z, go to solid. Because we took this out with the manipulator, we can just take the manipulator and bring this right back. Like that. So now I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, we're going to go down near our edit mode next to our two triangles. Click there, then select object mode. I'm going to go towards our upper body where our vehicle parts are at. I'm going to go back into edit mode. I want to break this up right here, so I'm going to hover here. I'm going to hold control. While holding control, I'm going to press R. That put in one loop cut. Control R, put the one loop cut in. I'm going to roll one time. Now we have two loop cuts. So I'm going to left click once and then left click a second time to lock those loop cuts in. I'm rolling the mouse wheel to zoom in. I'm holding shift and the mouse button to pan and press A to deselect. I'm going to go to face select. I'm going to click here, hold shift. While holding shift, I'm clicking here, letting go of shift. Holding shift again, and now I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu and then choose faces to delete. Okay, I'm going to zoom back. I'm going to left click here, hold shift. I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, press S to scale. I press E to extrude, right click, push in, press E to extrude, right click, press S to scale, and then E to extrude, right click, and then bring this out. And I did that because I just wanted to break that up some. Rolling the mouse wheel to zoom back, holding shift and middle mouse button to pan. Okay, we are currently on face select. We're going to hover here. We're going to press L. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold shift, press D, then right click. I duplicated this cube here. I'm pulling this cube backwards. I'm now selecting here. I'm going to push this together. So getting rid of that face because we're not going to see it. So I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm hovering here, pressing L, pushing this towards the other cube. Now I'm going to press A to deselect. Then I'm going to hover here. And I do that because that tends to make Blender, recognize the clipping there. With this selected, we're going to push this in like that. Now we're going to press A to deselect. We're going to left click here to go to edge select. We're going to click here. Push this down like this, hover here, hold control. While holding control, press R, left click again. I'm going to push this down like this now. I'm going to grab this. I'll bring this down like that. I'm going to go to face select. I'm going to select here, go back to the front, pull this out to the side. A little more. I'm going to press L to select the whole thing and lift this up some. Hold the middle mouse button just to rotate the view. I'll push this in like that. I'll press A to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do now is we are going to go down to object mode or edit mode and then click object mode. We're going to join these pieces to our main robot mesh. So the order is important. First we click the lower portion of our vehicle mode parts. We hold shift, we click the top part of our vehicle mode parts, and now we click on our robot mode. We let go after holding shift, and then we hold control and then press J. So now these are all one piece. So solidify will be on a bunch of our objects. However, this did not fix. So what we're going to do is, well, before we do that, what we're actually going to do is holding shift and middle mouse button to pan. We're going to, with this selected, hold shift, press D. I duplicate it. I'm just pulling to the side to make sure this is duplicated. So we can see here's the duplicate. And with the duplicate selected, I'm going to right click. Then I'm going to press M to bring up our layers panel. And I'm going to move this duplicate over here. One of the reasons why I wanted to duplicate this is don't be too concerned about your geometry being very high. We have a lot of geometry. We're going to take off these modifiers on the duplicate. And we'll use this to make a normal map. That's the plan. Okay, so we're gonna left click back on this. We're gonna click here and then left click to go to edit mode. Okay, so here we have this issue. So we're gonna hover here, press L. We'll hold control. While holding control, press B. And then we'll left click. I was holding shift for fine control, and I put a bevel on that, and that bevel took away that curvature, same curvature you see right here. So if I zoom in, I'm gonna hold shift, you can see this curvature right here, right? So what I'm gonna do is hover here. I am hovering here. I press L, I hold control, press B, and I hold shift for fine control, and then I pull to the side. And as soon as we put, that's what Control B does, it puts the bevel on. When we put the bevel on that, we got rid of the, that curvature that we didn't want. Holding shift and the mouse button to roll out to zoom back. Just taking a look. I'm going to click here, go to object mode. Again, just taking a look. I'm going to left click, go to edit mode. Let's get rid of these pieces here. I'm going to press Z, a wireframe, and I held control, and then while holding control, I held the right mouse button to do a lasso select. Now I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu. Then I'm going to choose faces to delete. I'm going to press Z and then go back to solid view. Okay, let's go to our vertex group. Click select. This was the other geometry that we had previously shrunken. I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu. Then I'm going to choose faces to delete. I'm now going to go to vertex select. We had other geometry that we had shrunk in here. I'm going to press Z, go to wireframe mode, press B for box select that, then press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose vertices to select. Then I'm going to press Z and then select solid to go back to solid view. Okay, we're going to go to object mode. I'm going to go to our materials tab. I'm going to click on this material that we had used for selecting that geometry, and then I'm going to click the minus button since we don't need that material now. Okay, with this selected, I'm going to left click and go into edit mode. And one thing I do want to do is I want to break this geometry up. So I'm going to go to face select, I'm going to click here, hold shift, and then what I'm going to do is I am going to left click on individual origins for our pivot point. I'm then going to click on our modifier tab. I'm going to unclick clipping. I'm then going to hold Alt. While holding Alt, I'm going to press E. I'm then going to select holding Alt and E brought up our extrude menu. I'm going to select individual faces. So what I'm gonna do is right click, then I'm gonna press S to scale. Then I'm gonna press E to extrude to bring that geometry out some. Click here. Raise that up some. I'm gonna press A to deselect. I'm gonna zoom back. I'm gonna go into object. Well, I'm gonna turn this individual origins point back to the Blender's default pivot point, which is the medium point. I'm gonna click here and go to object mode. Okay, yeah, I just wanted that broken up there somewhat. So I'm gonna press N to go to our properties panel. I'm gonna select only render. I'm then gonna click this button to take away our manipulator, and I'm gonna hold the middle mouse button to rotate to take a look. Okay, so we have our basic transformer robot mode. So this is what the vehicle will transform into. You can do all kinds of different changes. You can add a lot of different things to this. The plan is to rig this now, to rig this so that the vehicle actually transforms from the car to this mode right here. So this already has a lot of geometry. I didn't want to keep adding on, though I think it's very fun to keep adding and designing. But yeah, we have our basic transformer robot mode now.